Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Wynna Wong. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. President Xi Jinping arrives in Kazakhstan on his first trip abroad since the start of the COVID pandemic. Locally, there are calls for laws to protect workers toiling in the sweltering heat. And a bakery chain closes, becoming the latest business victim of COVID. President Xi Jinping has arrived in Kazakhstan on his first trip abroad since the COVID pandemic began. He will also visit Uzbekistan, where he's expected to meet his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Kazakhstan rolled out the red carpet for President Xi Jinping as his plane came to a halt in the capital, Nur-Sultan. Xi then stepped out and was greeted by Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev and his officials. This is Xi's first trip outside of China in almost 1,000 days, and only the second time he's left the mainland. The last time being his July trip to Hong Kong to mark the 25th anniversary of the city's handover. Xi is only making a brief stop in Kazakhstan. Tomorrow he heads to another Central Asian country, Uzbekistan. He will be in the city of Samarkand to attend the 8-nation Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. There, the Chinese leader is likely to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. It'll be crucially strategic for both nations, as China's relations with its neighbors and the United States are frayed over Taiwan, while Putin is feuding with the West over its war with Ukraine. As Hong Kong swelters under a prolonged hot spell, a survey has found that many cleaners who work outdoors have suffered from heat-related illnesses. Two groups are calling for laws to give outdoor workers better protection from the heat. Joanna Ho reports.
With the maximum temperature expected to stay above 33 degrees this week, there is concern about people who work outdoors. Greenpeace and the Hong Kong Catholic Commission for Labor Affairs interviewed 150 cleaners and conducted an on-site investigation of 11 workers in the past month. They found that over 50% of the workers had symptoms of heat-related illnesses during work. They included dizziness, headache, and difficulty in breathing. Many said their employers did not provide protection, such as hats and portable mini-fans. 30% indicated they were not given enough water to drink. And 80% hope to be better protected by new laws. This cleaner told iCable News that he felt dizzy after working non-stop under the heat. This worker said she suffered from heat stroke a few times. Both were able to drink water to get some relief. However, Law Pui Shan of the Catholic Commission said there is no guarantee that workers can rest if the heat makes them ill, citing the lack of legal effect in the current heat stroke prevention guidelines on protecting outdoor workers. Law said workers have to depend on the decision of their supervisors. Both groups urged the government to enact laws on heat-related illnesses and include them in the occupational safety and health regulation and categorize them as a compensable occupational disease. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Bakery chain Crostini has closed all its retail outlets after being unable to pay up to $7 million in rent. Customers who bought cake coupons are demanding refunds. Chloe Fong reports.
Bakery chain Crostini has closed all 11 of its retail outlets as it became the latest business to be hit by COVID. The firm said it made what it called a grave and disappointing decision after failing to turn the tide. Many people were worried about the prepaid coupons they bought. One customer said in a telephone interview that she purchased over $6,000 worth of vouchers for her wedding. More than 100 people who also bought coupons have joined an online group to demand a refund. Crostini owner said his branches owed up to $7 million in rent and did not have enough money, especially since a rental moratorium scheme ended in July. He said refunds to those who bought coupons would depend on the liquidator. The Consumer Council had some advice for customers.
Immediately to take out all the invoices and also the payment slip from your record and check it out whether you are using credit cards to pay for all these prepayment vouchers. If it is the case, then you can immediately go to the bank to apply for the chargeback to help you.
Wong urged those affected to wait for the appointment of the liquidator and then apply to become creditors. A union representing catering workers said 30 Crostini employees have sought help, claiming that the company owes its staff $3 million in salaries. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Daily COVID cases in Hong Kong have remained below 8,000 for the third straight day. There were 7,579 infections, 161 of which were imported. 46 classes in 38 schools were asked to suspend lessons for a week. They include 2 classes at the Aberdeen Technical School, where 3 others were suspended earlier. 30 students from the school are infected. 26 of them are from 2 residence halls, where transmissions are suspected to have begun. Christian Alliance Cheng Wing-ji College in Tai Wai was asked to stop all lessons for a week after 16 of its 25 classes reported infections involving 39 students and 14 teachers. Overseas now, hundreds of thousands of mourners in Britain are expected to pay their last respects to Queen Elizabeth as she lies in state at Westminster Hall in London. Her body was flown from Scotland to the British capital, where she was taken to Buckingham Palace for the last time. Sachin Kadvi reports.
To the sounds of a bagpipe, pallbearers carried Queen Elizabeth's coffin, draped in the Royal Standard of Scotland, out of St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. Mourners applauded in tribute as the hearse made its way through the historic heart of the Scottish capital en route to the airport. Escorted by Princess Anne, the coffin was loaded onto a Royal Air Force plane for the flight to London. The most travelled monarch in history touched down for the final time at Northolt Air Base. Prime Minister Liz Truss and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace were among those waiting for the arrival of the coffin. As the motorcade made its way through London, tens of thousands of people lined up the streets to pay tribute. Many motorists stopped their cars and got out to pay respects to the monarch who died last week at the age of 96 after 7 decades on the throne. People used the flashlights in their phones as candles to light the way as the Queen reached home for the last time. The crowd braved the rain and applauded as the royal hearse entered the palace. From tonight, the Queen will lie in state at Westminster Hall for 4 days before her state funeral on Monday. Sachin Kadvi, HKIBC.
The stress following his mother's death appears to be getting to King Charles during his visit to Northern Ireland. While signing a visitor's book in Hillsborough Castle near Belfast, he put down the wrong date. Charles then became irritated when the pen began leaking. He was heard muttering, "I can't stand this thing," every stinking time.
Meanwhile, dozens of Charles staff at his Clarence House residence have been told that they will lose their jobs when he moves his offices to Buckingham Palace. Some of them have served him for decades. Air raids on Ethiopia's northern Tigray region have continued, with at least 10 people killed in the latest attack. Many more people in the Tigrayan capital, Mekelle, were badly injured, raising fears that the death toll may rise. Tigray has been hit by airstrikes since rebel forces and government troops resumed fighting last month after a lull. Tigrayan authorities have offered to hold peace talks, but there's been no public response from Addis Ababa. The two-year-old conflict has killed thousands of people and displaced millions. Hong Kong stocks slumped today in reaction to dismal inflation data from the United States. Wall Street suffered its worst sell-off since the early days of the pandemic, amid fears that interest rates could jump 1% next week. Chloe Feng reports.
Regional stocks markets fell in step with Wall Street's performance overnight and took a deep dive today on fears that the U.S. Federal Reserve will be more aggressive in its interest rate policy. The Hang Seng Index plunged right from the start, dropping to 18,797 points, its lowest level in about half a year, before erasing some losses to close down 2.5%. WuXi Biologics extended its losses from yesterday and plunged a further 4.9%. Tektronic Industries declined 10% and was the worst performer of the day. Across Asia, the Nikkei shed 2.8%, while the South Korean benchmark lost 1.6%. The woes came as U.S. consumer prices remained high last month. Although inflation dipped to 8.3%, it was more than the market expected. The focus now is on how much the Fed will raise interest rates next week.
Inflationary pressure is still on, and then the market reacted negatively to it. And there are even 30% of the chance that the Federal Reserve might increase interest rate by 1% instead of 0.75%. We are still in a bear market, so you will expect the Hong Kong market to stay in the doldrums for a considerable length of time.
All three major U.S. stock indices tumbled overnight, losing 4% or more as the market keeps a nervous watch on the Fed. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
A look at the markets now. The Hang Seng Index closed down 479 points. In top 10 active stocks, Tracker Fund was down 47 cents, Tencent down $5.20. JD down $9.80, Meituan down $4, AIA down $2. In foreign exchange rates, the euro is at 7.84, British pound 9.06, Canadian dollar 5.95. And in UK markets, the FTSE is down 124 points. The U.S. government is scrambling to avert a railway strike that could cost the economy billions of dollars.
A shutdown would have a tremendous impact on our supply chains. As you all know, it's going to have a ripple effects into our overall economy on American families. A shutdown is not acceptable. That is not something that we want. It risks harming families. It risks harming businesses and whole communities.
About 60,000 railroad workers could walk off their jobs this weekend unless their demand for better working conditions is met. It would be the first national rail strike in 30 years and would cripple freight traffic. With Friday's deadline looming, the government is working on contingency plans to ensure the delivery of essential items. On to the weather now. It will be fine and dry tomorrow with some haze in the morning. Temperatures will range between 29 and 35 degrees. The dry and hot weather will continue into the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. And that's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Wynna Wong. Have a good evening.